This is Robert. He's 7 years old at the moment of his life when he decides to begin to educate himself seriously, financially. But his biological father does not have the financial mentality that he wants to achieve. His biological father advises him to study in something that he likes and work hard every day until his financial situation will be adequate for him to retire. In short, his biological father is stuck into what we call the rat race, and that is why his biological father refers to his poor father in the book. On the other hand, the little Robert does not give up on his conquest to become financially educated and will ask the father of his good friend Mike that his father, who was the proper financial intelligence, will be able to fulfill Robert's dream. Mike's father advised Robert that a great job is a short-term solution to a long-term problem, and that's exactly why Mike's father is going to have the role of his rich father. Robert will ask him the most important lessons to become rich, and it is these lessons that we will discover in this video. Make sure you stay to the 5th lesson because it's the most important one and it changed my life forever and could potentially change yours too. The rich don't work for money. The rich don't work for money. The rich have their money work for them. It is a fairly simple lesson to understand, but yet 90% of the people do not understand it because they don't apply it in their daily life. Indeed, their job is their only source of financial security, and the fear of losing it forces them to stay stuck in the vicious circle. It's the fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of losing everything. They learn how to work hard for money, but not to make their money work hard for them. They're stuck in what we aborted in this introduction. The rat race. So, get rid of the mentality of working your way up the ladder and replace it by owning the ladder. When you have the possession of the ladder, you will have the power and you will have your money working for you. Build up your assets column instead of your liabilities column, and your money will work for you 24/7 without you having to do anything. Your next question may be, what is an asset and what is a liability? Well, in this next lesson, we will teach you everything you need to know about these two major factors in finance. Number 2, assets versus liabilities. Assets and liabilities are the two most important factors in finance because it completely decides the wealth of a person. Because a person who will manage his financial assets intelligently, the richer he or she will be. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability and simply buy assets. They're very simple. Assets put the money in your pockets and liabilities take the money out of the owner's pocket. With that being said, we can deduce that rich people acquire assets and the poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Let's look at this board present in the book to more concretely imagine the situation. You can see in this board that the assets directly return money in the owner's income section, and if you compare it to the liability section, it goes through the owner's expenses section, taking money directly from the owner's pocket without making him in return. The most common example is a property. The vast majority of the poor and middle class think that their home is the highest or the biggest investment, so they also think that it is therefore the asset that will make them the most money in the longer term. But Robert Kiyosaki does not agree. Indeed, the author asserts that a house is the expense that causes several financial difficulties within a family because it makes it spend more money than it earns to his investors. This is an illustrative situation for the flow of cash of every social class. The cash flow of middle class person doesn't pass in the assets section, which is disastrous compared to the graph of rich person where his investments in the assets get him his money in the income section. Notice that a rich person doesn't need a job to make money. That's a great example of money working for money. If you want to be rich, simply spend your life buying and building assets. If you want to be poor or middle class, spend your life buying liabilities. Third lesson, pay yourself first. Mastering the power of self-discipline has only positive aspects for investors or entrepreneurs, but can be beneficial to learn for the middle and poor class too, because this notion puts yourself before the others, but in a good way that does not affect others but you individually, and this in a positive way. You have to control yourself before you want to get rich. That's essential. The notion of paying yourself first is an example of how to achieve this competence of self-discipline. Let us represent this concept graphically to better understand the situation. In this chart, we can see the cash flow of a person applying the rule of pay yourself first. The first place that money will pass by is the assets column, because with what we've learned in this lesson, if you want to be rich, simply spend your life buying and building assets. So as soon as you receive some form of payment, don't be in a rush to pay your expenses first. Take the time that it takes, because when there is a limit of time to pay an expense, the one who will wait the longest with the money will always be the one who will benefit the most, because our money is always better in our pockets. Then, when you have taken the time to invest in your assets column, the second place where your money should go is in your expenses. Here is an example of someone who would not apply to this rule. The difference is glaring. There is not a single dollar that will go into the assets column of this person in question, because he is under pressure from expenses and he wants to get rid of it as soon as possible. The rich know that the savings are only used to create more money and not to pay bills. If you pay yourself first, you will get financially stronger, mentally and fiscally. When you come up short, let the pressure build and don't dip into your savings or investments. Use the pressure to inspire your financial genius to come up with new ways to make money. This is very important. Fourth lesson, overcome obstacles. All types of people have obstacles that will be presented throughout their life. It is therefore normal to have them, but the way you react to it will change the level of your success that you will have in your life. The most common obstacles that will block the majority of people, as they will take these obstacles as an excuse to procrastinate and postpone work for later, are the following ones. 1. Fear. 2. Cynicism. 3. Laziness. 4. Bad habit. And 5. Arrogance. Now, I'd like each of you to pause this video and take the time to determine what your biggest obstacles are on a daily basis. Please go to the timers that correspond the category you have chosen that appears now on the screen, or you can always continue this video normally. Number 1, overcome fear. It's not having fear that is the problem, because everyone has fear, but it's mostly how you handle it. It's how you handle losing. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage their fear. Some people will take the positive side of failure to learn from them, and thus evolve in their learning. But for some, failure means the end and abandonment of that project. In short, failure inspires winners. Failure defeats losers. My favorite quote from the book comes from this section, and it goes like this. So, for most people, the reason that they don't win financially is because of the pain of losing their money is far greater than the joy of being rich. Robert refers to this quote by John D. Rockefeller that pretty much sums up the thinking of the rich. I always try to turn every disaster into an opportunity. If you apply every advice in this subsection, it is mathematically impossible for you to achieve all your biggest projects, and in our case, including getting rich. Overcome cynicism. There are two types of people when a big economic crash comes out of nowhere. The little chicken screaming, the sky falls, and those who profit from these chickens. I'll explain. Most of our population is low in chickens, and that's why there's a collapse. Because with those kinds of people, the economic situation will get worse. But there are opportunities that can be done through these types of people. Indeed, if your brain reacts with economic trends, you will never find good opportunities to invest, because you always do what others do. The biggest investor on this planet, Warren Buffett, explains this phenomenon and what to do in this situation. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. That said, mistakes are good if you learn from them. Overcome laziness. Laziness is caused by the mentality you have. You will overcome it as soon as you understand the mentality of the rich. Robert Kiyosaki explains in a passage that the cure for laziness is greed. Indeed, he explains that many of us has been raised in a world where greed is perceived negatively. But if there are good intentions behind a person's thoughts, greed can serve as a motivation to achieve their goals. Robert explains that the words, "I can't afford," it turns your brain off by prioritizing the question, how can I afford it? It'll open up possibilities, excitement, and dreams. To apply this method, he recommends a solution called the WFM, that stands for What's in It for Me. A person needs to sit down and ask, what would my life be like if I never had to work again? What would I do if I had all the money I needed? Without that little greed, the desire to have something better, progress is not made. Overcome bad habits. Our lives reflect our bad habits more than anything. The decisions we make every day, from the moment we wake up until we go to the bed, will determine how our lives evolve and how we want them to develop. So, if we decide to spend 5 to 6, but even have some time up to 8 hours a day on our phone, this means that we have decided to waste these precious hours, wasting our time, and we tell our brains that this is what we want every day because we reproduce it every day. It is a reality that it is difficult to accept, but one that is far too present and that poisons the life of our society. My personal suggestion for this problem is try not to pick up your phone every 2 hours in the beginning of the day. This will contradict your brain, which thought that this object is vital, and will gradually begin to believe that your phone is essential for you. From this habit, try to progress your way up to 3, 4, 5, 6 hours after you wake up. You will experience a situation where your phone will not be an essential part of your life. You will be addicted not to your mobile phone, but addiction of keeping your screen time as low as possible. Habits are actions we repeat daily without even knowing it. A habit can be built in your life after only 21 days, but it takes much longer to eliminate. To succeed, you need to develop successful habits. So, take a 21-day period that you think is the best for you and incorporate a successful habit for that period and do it with as many habits as you want. But do not think that you can change your whole life in a day. Success is developed by effort and dedication. Overcome arrogance. Emotions are a big control factor in our lives. Learn to use your emotions to think, not to think with your emotions. For this, you have control over them in any situation. Also, learn to admit that you don't know everything, that you're not perfect, because no one is. There is, and there will always be someone you can learn from. So always listen to others, because these people can be important sources of education in your progress. Now, before we go any further in this video, if you enjoy this kind of content and have learned things since the beginning of this video, please consider subscribing to this channel, because every week we discuss about a topic linking finance, and don't forget to click the bell icon to be aware of any news in this channel. Final and the most important lesson: mind your own business. You have probably already heard this famous quote that comes from the ancient Greece, which basically means manage yourself. But in Rich Dad Poor Dad, this phrase has a double meaning. Mr. Kiyosaki says in his book that there is a big difference between your profession and your business. Whatever is your profession, it's not your business. The main reason that people do not succeed financially is because the financial struggle is often the result of people working all their life for someone else. But you can still manage your own business without necessarily having to quit your job. Indeed, when Kiyosaki refers to a business, he refers to having his own column of assets, which will passively generate money without any work being done. Because Robert Kiyosaki doesn't encourage everyone to start a company unless they really want to, so nothing prevents you from keeping your job, but still mind your own business. Be active in your asset column by trading real estate or small stock or anything that motivates you and that you can profit from it. Once a dollar goes into it, never let it come out. The reason why this lesson comes last in order to make you realize that taking action is much easier than we think, and that a single action could affect our entire life because a habit could be generated by this action. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a starting point for anyone looking to gain control of their financial future. The video takes up only a small part of the book, and it is the most important financial book of all time. So, if you want to get the book yourself, be sure to check the description for the book link on all platforms. My last words for the video are: take action.